Greetings, I'm Anita from Yoga on the Road. Thank you for joining me for this very short session today. It's probably more about talking and giving you techniques. So our focus today is on improving balance. Balance is something that can elude a lot of us. So the three techniques that I'm going to share with you are ones that I feel have supported and helped my balance progress, and I've seen they've helped some of my students progress their balance practice as well. The lovely thing I like about balance too is how a lot of these skills can be transferred into how we think about balance in life, which we'll touch on a little bit more later. So the first principal core is exactly that. It's developing our core strength. So 3 poses I would like to recommend that you kind of include or incorporate into a more of a regular routine. These will help you to move towards thinking about balance from your center or your core. The first pose, one that we all know, is plank pose. So if you would like to start on your hands and knees, bring your hands just in front of the line of your shoulders, your knees just behind the line of your hips, and press down into one foot, extend one leg, press down into the ball of the other foot, extending that leg too. So the tendencies here or misalignments can obviously be the sagging in the hips here, or the hips sort of too high. We want to meet somewhere in the middle there, and then when we find that point, think of your navel lifting towards your spine. You want to really concentrate on keeping a steady, even breath. Pressing down firmly or gripping through the fingers can often support any wrist tension here. And if you've arrived here with me, hold for 3 breaths. And come out. Another way that pose can be taken, because quite often you may have a wrist injury or a weak wrist. The other way you can come into it is via forearms. So it's the same principles, except here you're resting on your forearm. Both legs extend. Again, watch for this kind of dipping in the hips or the extended hips. Think about your shoulders being aligned over the elbows, lifting the navel up towards the spine, and taking steady, smooth and even breaths. So that's an alternative there. Number 2, another great core pose would be to come into boat pose. So you want to think about shifting back onto the back of the sit bones, and then just raising one leg. And to practice, if you're not used to this initially, just practice lifting one foot at a time. You'll already start to notice the core working. And then if you're feeling fairly stable, see what it's like to feel both feet lifting from the ground. Again, the core is still drawing back towards the spine. Keep lifting and lengthening out through the spine. Wherever you've arrived to explore this, take 3 breaths. Come out slowly. Do whatever you need to take any of that or release any of that tension from the back. And the last core pose that I had in mind, that is a really easy one to blend into your routine, would be side plank. So again, options to take side plank on the forearms for those that have weaker wrists. Side plank looks like arms slightly in front of the line of the shoulders, and then rolling onto the outer edge of one foot and the inner seam of the other foot, and extending that arm up. So there's lots of alternatives for this side plank. If you wanted to make it more of a movement core exercise, then keep both hands pressing into the mat, and all you're doing is rocking your body weight or shifting your body weight from one side to the other. And lower and ready. So they're your 3 core focuses to add into your routine somewhere along the line. Technique number 2 is our drishti, and drishti is also our gaze point. So this is our ability to be able to fix our gaze on a single point. This skill will enhance your concentration, and it will also reduce or help to reduce distractions. So it's easy to get distracted by things around us, and distractions do not support your working on balance. So, for example, if I was to come into tree pose, or a variation of tree pose, I might fix my gaze just in front of the point of the camera and not move that gaze. The moment we start looking around, we get distracted. You can see the body is already moving. It's not supporting your practice. So drishti is very important. And it also reminds us, when you think about balancing life, that having a clear focus or vision really helps to keep you on track. So there's a life takeaway if you want to look at an analogy from the yoga mat. And the last and least, tip number 3, is practicing grounding techniques. When we talk about grounding techniques, we often think of our foundation, so the part of our body that is connected to the earth. In this case, or in most cases for balance, it's going to be our feet. So I like to think about the feet as having 4 corners, if you can call them that. So we've got the big toe mound, just below the big toe, little toe mound, you've got the outer and the inner heel. So the way to feel them kind of plugging in and connecting to the earth is by lifting the toes up until you have a sense or a feeling of each of those points rooting down into the ground. And then when you have that, lower the toes and still see if you can connect to those points. You want the weight to be evenly distributed between those points as well. Now, valuable tip. Quite often with yoga mats, there's padding, quite a bit of padding to the mat, and they make them spongy and soft, and this can actually kind of make balance hard or challenging as well. So I often recommend to my yogis to come off the mat onto the solid earth, lift and connect and distribute the weight evenly. Let's put all 3 techniques together now. 3, 3. Connect to the ground. Find your gaze point where you can set your gaze on a single point. Engage the core. So if that means having a feeling of drawing the navel back towards the spine, lifting and lengthening up through the spine. And then take your foot to your inner ankle, to your inner calf, to your inner thigh if that's in your practice. Wherever your foot connects, use the pressure of the foot inwards, drawing everything inwards to remind you of your core engagement and how the core is supporting you. When you're ready, gently lower. Do whatever you need to do to release any tension from the legs and the feet. And let's move to the other side. Thinking about those 3 techniques again, we're grounding down. We're finding a gaze point. We're drawing everything into the center or the midline or our core. We're maintaining a steady breath. And we're just going with any of the slight movements that come up for us. When you're ready, slowly lower. Thank you so much for joining me. Balance is all really about practicing mindfully and being very patient with yourself. I hope you can take those 3 techniques today and incorporate them into your practice with playfulness while you explore your way to balance. And I also hope that some of that, like finding your core values and using those core values to help support balance in life. I hope that you have some takeaways from this. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.